The Black Panther Party collaborated with Filipino American activists at the time to help us get the word out about what was happening to our elders.
February is Black History Month in the United States, but this is a Filipino American podcast. What does that have to do with us? If you look back at Black history in America and Filipino American history, they both follow very different journeys, but there are overlaps on both of our timelines. What we try to do at Future Ancestors is to find the similarities. We support while trying not to appropriate. We want to show solidarity without trying to do performative allyship. But how? So we'll use evidence that we've provided for you to see how much in common that there should be seen and not animosity between both communities. So this is Future Ancestors celebrating Black History Month.
Yes. So I think for me, it's important to talk about this because of what we experienced during COVID, all the hate crimes against our community. And that was very hurtful because for me, I'm like, there's so many similarities. Why, like, we're not the enemy, you know? So then it just kind of led me into doing some research and, here we are talking about it in solidarity to show that it's been, we've been in solidarity for a long time. I mean, for me, one of the first things that I saw was the Delano grape strike. It's also called the Delano Manong strike. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Okay. That happened in 1965. But even back then, I mean, we were side by side. We understood what the oppression was. It was the same for the Black community, our community. So we joined forces. We weren't against each other. The hate crimes and stuff, I'm not really sure where that's coming from.
Well, I think it's a lack of information, but that's why when they say things like when they're trying to prevent a curriculum that teaches this past, they don't want you to know about it.
Yeah,
it does bring us together. So unfortunately, like even our generation, and I mean now you have access to more information, but we didn't know it growing up. So
no, yeah, you have to seek it, right? So for those of you who maybe haven't, or it's not on top of mind, completely understandable. There's so much going on. We did some research for you so that way, you can be more educated about the solidarity that we have had between the two communities.
Yes, exactly. So one of the examples I used too was the Buffalo Soldiers. Now, I mean, I think people hear that term, they think maybe Bob Marley of the song Buffalo Soldier, or even Fugees
Yeah.
saying Buffalo Soldier, dreadlock, making reference to the Bob Marley song. But they were a special regiment in the American Army, and they were deployed in the Philippines during the Filipino American War to fight off Filipinos after the U.S. had declared them a property of the Philippines being the property of the United States. So it's crazy. Between 1899, 1902, all of these Black soldiers were in the Philippines fighting. But one thing that they noticed was a similarity between what they went through, suffered as Black people in the United States, and how now darker, melanated people in another country are going through the same thing. So most Filipinos, they know the name David Fagan because he was maybe the most well-known defectors of the U.S. Army, and as a result ended up joining the Philippine Army and becoming a high-ranking officer. Unfortunately, he was killed in battle, but it's just an example of what happens when our communities find their true solidarity of oppression, and it's fact. It's right there.
Yeah.
It's just an unfortunate too because like this is where I always also bring up our Puerto Rican brothers and sisters who are still a Commonwealth of the U.S. We are still in the most part we are independent, but economically we're and militarily we are still a under the U.S. So
Hmm.
it's an unfortunate thing, but then when you see those similarities, then you be like, yeah, we know how you feel.
Yeah.
So that's an example.
Another example was the International Hotel during the Civil Rights Movement,
Hmm.
and how we saw again the similarities in oppression. So, like Huey P. Newton, he joins our movement, and
Hmm.
to amplify our voices and help get the word out about what was happening at the International Hotel. And that
Yes.
was in Cal. So I noticed that the Delano grape strike that was in Cal. A lot was happening in
California.
California.
Yep. Delano, Watsonville, Third World Liberation Front in Berkeley, and San Francisco State University. Yeah, it's mostly California. But this is where a lot of us were, and we all went through the same struggles together. It's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
it is pretty crazy. But yeah, the Black Panther Party collaborated with Filipino American activists at the time
Hmm.
to help us get the word out about what was happening to our
Hmm.
elders. Like,
I mean, at the end of the day, it is one of those first instances where people knows what gentrification was. Like just
yes, exactly.
we didn't call it that back then. It was just maybe like, oh, we're just moving out. All of these darker skinned people or these others, and just to make
Hmm.
room for themselves. And this is one of the first instances of people fighting back.
Yeah, it
And
was. I just found it was the elderly and low income,
mhm.
so they had to, which is crazy that they had to
and
fight.
and related to what we had with West Bay Philippine Cultural Center, which when we talked to Carla Laurel, these are the same areas, the neighborhoods, and today, and if you go back to our old episode, you can tell she serves the Filipino community, but not only that,
Yep.
they serve the Latino community, serve the Black community as well, but it's
Yep.
historically Filipino. So this solidarity still goes on today. So if I can
Absolutely.
make note of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, so to that point, someone that I read about was Rob Bonta.
Yes.
Are you familiar with him?
Yes, he's
The
in
Attorney General.
Attorney General, California.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so he's still advocating for both black and brown, the
Hmm.
both black and brown community, which is awesome. There's actually a few organizations that are out there that I only have a few examples. I forgot. Okay. So I don't know. Is Did you want to go somewhere else, or did you want me to share? So how are you feeling?
Um, I mean, what we were talking about, they're like California is a theme, and that's kind of why when we all talk about um, oh, how come when we do Filipino things, it's always California, California? It's because the main enclaves of Filipino districts were there, obviously in Los Angeles. But um, when you look historically and see how, like, all of these instances where the community came together, it kind of makes sense. So, like, we were discussing too about um, the Watsonville riots,
Mm-hmm.
where Filipinos were just a replacement for other Asians that were just another replacement for no longer having slaves available because of emancipation. And this is the connection that we always talk about, because and that people don't even realize. uh, and it goes the same too, where when we go back to what we were just talking about with the Buffalo Soldiers, um,
Mm-hmm.
whether instead of American troops fighting this conflict, they're just pinning you know uh, skinned people versus other dark skinned people,
Yeah,
different
minorities.
shades
Yeah.
fighting each other. And the one thing that I read also about that whole part of the Buffalo Soldiers was after the Civil War, and then now black people are being, considered as citizens in some rights. Them becoming soldiers, that was way to prove to them that they were officially American. So there were people, even though there's solidarity, they were having people who were fighting with them themselves, like, oh, let me be American soldier and kill these Filipino soldiers so it makes me more American.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
it's that hard battle, and then you see people will take sides saying, wait a minute, but this is wrong because they're doing the same thing that they did to us. So it's when you read all, unfortunately, you don't have this information out there. Like, we're not obviously the authority of
Oh, absolutely
education
not.
here,
Yeah.
but we're starting these conversations so you can research
Yeah.
and find your own way, but looking at the similarities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe Watsonville riots, there might be some people listening that don't know what that is. You want to elaborate a little bit more?
Okay, so if you guys looked at our social media, futureancestors.tv, follow us. Uh, we talked about the anniversary of Watsonville because it's a very important part of Filipino American history that is not maybe on the forefront, but is basically an example of what happened after colonization. So yes, because uh, other Asians were being discriminated against, like the Chinese. They were trying to find a way to get cheap labor, and because the Filipinos were colonized from after the Philippine American War, uh, they ended up becoming the cheap labor that they needed. So it's once the white Americans realize, like, oh yeah, they're taking jobs away from other white people, and then white women were like making friends with the majority male workers because those are the only ones who were working this farmland. Then they were like, oh, wait a minute, we don't want you guys anymore. So during the Watsonville riots, they were attacking Filipinos, were beating them up in the streets, throwing them off of bridges. They set fire to a Filipino dance club, and then you were having no Filipinos allowed in certain areas. This is the parallel to the Jim Crow South, where same thing, Reconstruction after the Civil War, black men were getting elected into office in Congress, and they were gaining power as business owners. So what did they do? Oh, now we're gonna terrorize them. We're gonna attack them. We're gonna lynch them. We're gonna kill them, and then they're not allowed to have the same rights as white people. So when you have your white and colored, you're having your black people sit in the back of the bus. It's very simple. Filipino people only got a little part of that, but this is
Yeah.
why we're trying to find this solidarity. It's like we just got a taste of it. It could have been so much. The only one reason why we didn't get more is we had they had systematically gave us our independence, so they sent a lot of us back, and they made sure that not a lot of us came, and not made us citizens anymore. That's the bit. It's a hard thing to think about, but Philippine independence had a lot to do with white Americans not wanting Filipinos on American soil.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy, you know? So we want y'all to connect the dots, people. This is what the whole point is. Not to take away anything from it being Black History Month and us appreciating the accomplishments of Black Americans, for African American, if you subscribe to that terminology, because yes, there are a lot of black people who we're celebrating too, who are also like first generation Americans also. So we want to give our love and support for the community, and not just show it because, oh, we're trying to kiss your ass. We're not. We see it, and we it's reflecting in our history too, and we want to know that. And plus, a lot in our community are also mixed race Filipino and black. We see it in not only just because you see it with celebrities and musicians and athletes. We see it too with our everyday friends and family, in our literal families. You can look
Yeah.
at Cat and I, and it's literal. So it's like we don't forget about that, and I think that's the main idea of why we're showing our support. This is not just some performative stuff here.
And I think it's an important topic to talk about, for us to show solidarity between our communities. I think it needs to be more mainstream conversation. All the
Mhm.
organizations that are out there that are fighting for Black and Brown communities, because at the end of the day, we all we were all oppressed. Yeah, there's like a lot of similarities, and it hurts my heart to see. It hurts my heart to see all of the injustices that go on with the hate crimes, and then George Floyd, and then Breonna Taylor, and then it was, this Filipino woman got punched in the face multiple times, and those things are really, really painful. And having children, I don't want them to grow up in a world like that. So obviously we can't change everything, but if we can start the narrative and have these conversations and normalize these conversations, so that way we can figure out and amplify these stories and the voices and the ancestors that came before us, and contribute to the change that they were trying to make, like
Mhm.
Huey P, like Cesar Chavez, like we were like Larry Itlong, like they were all together.
Mhm.
Where's that for us now?
It's shown, but I think what I realized too is we need more vocal people showing that, but also at the same time, like, Filipinos are not, because of colonialism, because of this mentality, we're definitely a divided community too. And
Yes.
some people who don't know this historical solidarity, because they don't think of it like that, they're also fed the same ideals when you become an American, of a lot of this institutionalized racism gets implanted because that's how they were educated as well. So we have to remember that. And we do have a choice. And in order for us to come together, we have to put this information out there. Like for us, when we decided, hey, we want to put and show love to all these um, black Filipinos, these Afro Filipinos on our social media, and we got a good amount of feedback
Yeah, no,
for
it was beautiful.
all the people we put out there. This is not a like, oh, yeah, this is cool. It's just, we know there are Filipinos out there that if you see a darker Filipino that don't look Filipino, that looks maybe more black than Filipino, they're not may not be accepted.
Yep.
Sometimes, unfortunately, because they're famous, because they're a celebrity, then they'll be like, then they might claim them. In a way, we want to say, hey, like, you don't have to wait to find out that they did something, or like they did something, they became famous, and then you love them.
Notable. Yeah.
But at the same time, look at these faces, and you know damn well they look like us.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure you see that, and then find that you're like, wait, they're Filipino too. I'm proud of them. So we're gonna put that out there. And if other people do the same thing, and I expect you to copy it, because we want you to show that same solidarity and show that same love.
And we do have
And
to apologize to, what's her name? Hey Berna? Is that
yeah,
her social, her Instagram? We do send a huge apology
hmm
because we put her
we put her on
on,
there.
and she is full Filipina. And I
Yes.
resonate with that because everyone always looks at me and they're like,
hmm
but you're half black, right? And I'm like, I'm full Filipina.
Yep.
Like I am what a Filipina looks like.
Yes, we're guilty of it too. So I'm guilty of it too, and that's the thing. But all I can do is apologize, huge apology. But at the same time, she took it
Oh,
with
such
class.
grace.
So
Oh my gosh,
so
such grace.
we salute her. We're gonna do a newer version because there are other people. We had actually had recommendations of other Black Filipinos that needed some love and support too. So we're gonna add on to this, and maybe this is gonna be a continuing thing that we do moving on. And if there are ones that you're not familiar with, please ask. Hey, who's that one over there? We'll tell you, and then we want to give all these stories and tell you about these members of our
Yes.
Filipino Afro Filipino American history and culture. Because if you look at it, there's actually a lot more that we forgot too. So,
I mean, it's
um,
impossible to fit them all in one thing too. So,
oh
but
yeah,
I also want to shout out Radical Visionary Collective
mm.
for correcting us. Thank you so much for,
Yes, thank
pointing that
you.
out because
Hmm.
listen, we're open to learning, right? So even in
Hmm.
this dialogue that Jason and I are having, it's more to start the conversation because we're trying to figure everything out just like you guys are, where this is about the Filipino American experience, us connecting to our history, having these conversations that we may have privately in our own homes because we're afraid to have them in public. So
Hmm.
this is Jason and I being vulnerable and
Exactly.
starting a conversation with y'all. Like, we want peace and solidarity, and we want people to know our stories and our voices, right? We want to take up more space. We want us to take up more space. We want to encourage our stories to be told more. So that's my spiel. But I feel good. I feel like we've come a long way.
Hmm.
I love the feedback that we got from the post that was put up. A lot of
Hmm.
people. Actually, there was also one woman that we have to add, Chef Nicole Michelle, I think. Let me look. Let me look. She was
Yeah.
like someone. What's her name? It was such a cute response. Oh, the chef. I'm gonna butcher her name. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Oh, Stephanie. Okay, so
Yeah.
Stephanie Nicole. We definitely have to add her in there. I think it was
Hmm.
cute. She was like, "Someone put me up in there." I was like, "That's so cute." So we got to add her in the next version as well.
And there's another chef also
Oh,
who's
okay.
the, yes. That's what I said. There's like two, three more um, that we need to include. But yeah, that this is why I love it. Mistakes were made in both sides. We added
Yeah,
people that not we
we
forgot to
did
put
that. Yeah.
other people there, and it can keep on going on and on. And I think this is a very good example of, yeah, look, our community does come together, and
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
interpersonal relationships are as it is, but that's why we're from the same communities too. So
And I
this
love
is
what you
just an
just said
example.
as far as community, right? Because we are a community. Had we not been about community, we could have taken what was said and felt a way about it, or they could have
Hmm.
felt a way about it, and it could have
Hmm.
caused division, but it didn't. It
No.
was like, hey, don't forget me. Hey, what's her name? Hey, Berna. I
Hmm.
can't. She was just like, great post anyway. Like she was still saluting us even though we got it wrong. And that's what
Yep.
I think it thank you for, whoever didn't judge, right? And
Hmm.
was willing to correct us and keep it moving with us because this is how we learn, not
Exactly.
shaming each other for getting it wrong. They were very gentle in correcting, like, hey, so I'm sure she appreciates you shouting her out.
Hmm.
She's not. I just think that there's just ways to go about it. So to your point, we have built a community of beautiful people who I love that are open to sharing how they feel in a
Hmm.
very gentle way,
Exactly.
which is what I think community should be.
This is February. This is Black History Month. You
Yes.
can, we can do it. We can do it like the traditional way and honor all our um, Black brothers and sisters who've made an impact on history. But you see, there's a lot of uh, solidarity between the community happening naturally. So like the one thing I wanted added to was former Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall. His wife was
Yeah.
Filipino too. He had Filipino children, and sometimes that was like a footnote in history. And mentioning Joe Bataan again, he had said that at the time that wasn't a thing. You're like, oh yeah, my dad's Filipino, but it was just like if you were black, you were black. It didn't matter what you were mixed with, and it was considered that way. That's why there were no laws against if you were Afro Latino and then you married a black person. It was just, oh, at the end you're just black.
Yeah.
So now there are more nuances to what it is. Yeah, you could be Afro Latino Puerto Rican, Afro Latino Colombian, like Afro Filipino from the States. Like all of those things we're embracing right now. So
Yeah.
we just want to make that known.
Yeah. We just wanted to start the conversation on Black History Month about the solidarity that we have had because we want to amplify those stories more
Hmm.
so we can get that out there more as opposed to what we see in the news, which is, divide and conquer.
Yeah, exactly. So,
And we want to build community so we can be stronger.
yes.
Yeah.
And maybe one added thing that we actually added on the picture was today. You see, it said that like you mentioned Rob Bonta in California, but in Tennessee, Justin Jones, and
Hmm.
you saw him on the news. Him getting kicked out of the local Congress there because of the horrible practices that some members of that Congress were doing. But he fought and
Wait,
fought
you
his
said
way
this happened
back.
today?
No, this past year in
Oh,
2023.
oh, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. When he
Yes.
was, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
It was
I thought
all
you
over
said
the
today. Was like I
news.
didn't hear. Okay, yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, there's nothing else that happened. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
was
want to
like
alert you to
today.
any
I
news.
didn't. Yeah.
No,
I don't want to
but
act like I
yes,
knew what you were talking.
another Black and Filipino person, but making history now and
Yeah,
fighting for the Black community, but for fighting for us Filipinos too. He embraces all aspects of who he is. So we have to
yeah,
salute these people, say
absolutely.
thank you,
Thank
because
you.
I think it's all inclusive. If we're fighting for our um, liberation, it's not gonna happen if one of us is free. Unless all of us are free, there's no true freedom. So I think that's kind of like what the theme is.
So yes, thank you because coming from like my own personal experience where you're seen and not heard, right? It takes a lot of courage to do that. So I don't see things like that and take that lightly or hear stories about our ancestors who fought the way that they did and take it lightly because right now even where I am trying to find my voice and fight, it's a journey, you
Hmm.
know? So I definitely admire and am very grateful, like you said, to anyone using their voice and platform for solidarity and peace, justice for all.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you can fight this at home. Like we'll be honest with ourselves too, because not all friends and family are maybe have the same way of thinking. They might have the same unfortunate, like we said, institutionalized racist ideas of their people, and maybe because they don't know them. But like again, if you see another Filipino that have is also black, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I don't know any black people, but there are black Filipinos. Maybe I should give them a chance. I think that's the whole point of that. It's like giving them an idea, like maybe people are telling you to hate them, and as Filipinos, what is our duty to show this example of like historically and now we're one and the same, if you may believe it or not. And then if you're gonna find someone that that might change your mind, then we did our job.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point of having these conversations as well, right?
Hmm.
The more, sometimes you just don't know. So hopefully us having this conversation will, you know, change your perspective or open your perspective to a different outlook.
Exactly. I agree.
Um yeah. So, is there anything else?
Just given myself also want to give thanks, like looking at the history of this. Like I said, we're making these comparisons in history of like saying like a David Fagan who stepped up when seeing the injustice, or seeing um like the comparisons of say like Watson, Jim Crow, and seeing that yes, we were also discriminated. So please don't do the same. Or the Third World Liberation Front, like what they worked together with Latino, with Asian, with Filipino, with Black student organizations, all coming together, and then they were one of the first instances of the creation of ethnic studies. The whole point of this is telling these stories in a institution, so then the next generations could. And this is from like our parents generation in the late 60s that did this, and they did this for us, and you could see their work today. And then you see it, in how the communities are in say Northern California, that they have that. And I don't know if you knew that, like I had conversations with people in our generation who came from California, and they're like, oh yeah, I took Filipino studies in college. And I'm like looking at them like, really, they have that? And they're like,
Yeah,
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 because of the fight that these students did back in the late 60s, made it possible that when you see all these more informed Filipino people who are writing all of these posts that you see about these facts that we're learning and now we're also sharing, it's
yep,
because of that. So it's
yeah, and they,
important.
yeah, and just also to share some of the people that we know now. Like I see on like Cala Mendoza.
Yeah.
Like if you want to see someone that is advocating, there's a few of them that are.
Oh yeah,
Like
they're out there in the streets. They're out there
yeah,
protesting, helping other people out there on the front line. Like yeah, with him, he's actually like he works as like also as a medic out there, telling people like how to like when getting confronted by the police, or like getting when you get in, they throw the tear gas, how to do it. Like I
yep,
didn't know, like if you're gonna protest, you can't be like me wearing contact lens. You gotta take them out because they're gonna go in your eyes. Like no, he's giving like actual advice to people. Like hey, if you really want to go this fight, I'm there for you. And all of those Filipinos for Black Lives like posters that you see, he's the one who made that.
yep,
So
yep. I
big
was
up
very
to
inspired by
him.
him. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
and he
sure.
fights for also the Filipino community, all peoples of color, and also the LGBTQIA plus community as well. So it's like, oh, I gotta give that guy props, and
Yep.
that's the way. He's not a mixed Filipino. He's just fighting for everybody, and I think that's what we're trying to do here. You don't have to be like, oh yeah, I'm half black, half Filipino, and then I gotta celebrate it. No,
Yeah.
you can be Filipino and celebrate Black History Month, like
Yep.
like how we have want other people to celebrate Filipino American History Month too. It's
Yeah.
part.
Learn,
It
educate.
is American history. You
Yep.
know.
Exactly. Another person that I wanted to shout out was Rohan Zuli. I hope I
Hmm.
didn't butcher your name. I'm so sorry if I did.
Hmm.
But he is the founder of Blasian March, which is
Yes. Yes.
awesome. So he's also someone that you guys can check out. It's Diary of a Firebird on Instagram. I found an article that he wrote a couple years ago, which was awesome, just talking about his advocacy. And then there's one more that's a teacher that we spoke about, you and I.
Hmm.
Um, but I see him doing. He's an advocate as well. I just want to share some people who are advocating, so that if you want to check them out, follow them, and be inspired by them. Obviously
Exactly.
Afro Filipina is always sharing
Oh, for
great
sure.
information. I don't know, is there anyone else?
I mean, we covered a lot, but I think the ones that we provided, they you can branch off and find other people in the community also.
But Tony Rosa Speaks, that's who
Yes.
he
Oh
is.
yeah, that guy's
Oh,
great.
there we go. Tony De La Rosa, he's someone that I was following as well, but on Instagram he's Tony Rosa Speaks. I think that he's someone great to follow as well if you're just looking to learn more as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, here is our conversation and contribution to you guys during Black History Month.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, hope it inspires you to do a little search, maybe open up a book or like the one thing I forgot to add too was you mentioned Huey P. Newton at the Black Panther Party. If you see
Hmm.
his most infamous picture sitting on that wicker throne, that's the traditional Filipino chair called, they call in English like a peacock chair. And it's a
Oh,
Filipino design chair, and it's associated with a lot of black culture, but it's Filipino. So that's
interesting. I didn't know that.
something to add over there. It's been going around in social media, but I don't know how far. But I remember growing up seeing a chair like that, and I was like, oh wait. And a lot of people used it in black culture over the years um, to represent like royalty. And I'm
Yeah.
kind of glad that in that same solidarity that you know that was a Filipino chair used in the background. So
Makes sense because
something cool.
it looks like a throne, so it makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a peacock with its feathers stretched out. But see, we
Yes.
got so much in common. It's ridiculous. So you might as
Yes.
well, learn more about it and see what we have in common. You know,
Yeah, it's all about love and unity, peace, you
exactly.
know, community.
Well, thank you
Thank you.
everybody
Thank
for
you.
listening once
Yes.
again to Future Ancestors, and we'll see you next time. On behalf of Kat
Cat.
and Jason, I'd like to thank you for always supporting and checking us
Yes.
out.
Thank you. Thank you. Till next time.
All right.
Bye.